Okay.
Welcome, Wargamers. This is Doug with 2+ Stuff, and we're continuing our series on the reviewing the start collecting boxes for Warhammer 40k now that 8th edition is dropped. If you haven't seen it already, go ahead over and check out the Dark Eldar one that I just put up a little while ago, give you kind of a taste of how things are going to go. Basically, we review the contents of the box, going unit by unit, what they do, how they interact with one another, and then we kind of have a talk at the end about different options available to you, as well as kind of a rating system of like, is this a good box based on my kind of two criteria, which we'll get to towards the end. If you didn't catch it last time, we are actually now a proud sponsor of Heroic Intervention, which is an awesome Warhammer 40k podcast based out of the Pacific Northwest over in the Portland area. If you haven't already, head down to the link below. It's in the show notes, and head over to their podcast and click subscribe. Those are great guys, and they have a great show. So today we are taking a look at the Necron Start Collecting box. This one was actually requested by one of our viewers in the last show, Micah Nations. So let's go ahead and dig in and see what's in the box. Alright, so the Necron Start Collecting box comes with 1 Overlord, 1 Triarch Stalker, 12 Necron Warriors, and 3 Scarab Swarms. So kind of a bird's eye view looking at the box. First of all, you save roughly $30 US based on buying these things individually. It's a good bit of coin. Yeah, it's definitely enough to go get, like, say, a second unit warrior or something like that. So it's good savings. What I like about this box is it gives you a good variation of unit types. So you have like your small, fast kind of chaff type guys in the swarms. You have your basic infantry in the Necron warriors. Obviously you have an HQ with the Overlord, and a big heavy hitter like centerpiece looking model in the Stalker. That being said, let's go ahead and dig into the individual units themselves. We're going to start off by talking about the Overlord, which is a beautiful HQ model that you get in the box. Now, your Overlord is a very customizable HQ. He does quite a few things for the army, and he's relatively cheap compared to some of the named characters that you can pick early on. The Overlord has pretty standard weapon options. A lot of them do. They basically have like a staff, 2 different kind of swords, and a war scythe, really. As far as which one to choose, it kind of depends on what you want him to do in the army. So like if you want him to be dedicated heavy hitter for like hard targets, the war scythe is going to be the best. Has the best strength modifier and AP value. If you want to keep him cheap, don't upgrade him at all. That kind of stuff. He does have an like sort of like an aura ability where he can basically at the start of any turn pick a Necron unit, and they get +1 to their advance, charge, and hit rolls, which will be important coming on later. So it does give him a little bit of force multiplication with his army, right? It makes them do more, which is always a good thing. Additionally, he can also opt to take a Resurrection Orb, which we'll talk about more at the end of the video. But basically, all Necrons get a chance at the start of a turn to kind of regenerate models that have been slain. So what he does is lets you roll that same roll again, so kind of increasing your odds of you pick a unit once a game, and they can do that, right? So like it kind of increases their chance of multiplying more. What's important to note is that you're not actually required to use him as an Overlord. You can just use him as a regular Lord. There is a distinction. Overlord has better stat line, really. He also has that force multiplication ability. The regular Lord doesn't. However, the regular Lord is a lot cheaper and can also take a Resurrection Orb. So it kind of depends on what you want. So if you go with Overlord, I would say have a purpose for him to go in there and do some mingling, you know, get in an enemy's face and wreck something. If you want a Lord who's more of a support character for a large group of units or something like that, I would say just tailor it based on what your specific army list requires or what it needs. So next we're going to jump into the Necron Warriors. This is going to be really, really quick here. They don't have a whole lot going on special ability-wise. What's something that's important to note is that you get 12, and if you were to buy a box of Necron Warriors, you also get 12 there. However, the unit size is always 10. So you're going to have 2 extras. Don't feel like you're wasting anything, just because I would say hold off on building them, because Necron bits are all very interchangeable, and so you could use them to do some really cool conversions. I've seen people make what do they call the flesh guys with the flesh hanging off their body, those kinds of things. You know, all kind of conversions. You can do cryptex, you can all kinds of cool stuff. So don't feel like you're wasting your money. Just know that you're not going to be playing, if you're playing with non-open play rules, you're going to be using the unit of 10 instead of 12. Now, looking at their gun profile, it's really easy to think that you're basically looking at a bolt gun. See, in the old edition, these the Gauss weaponry always had a chance to damage vehicles. No matter what it was, it could hurt it, right? There's always some mathematical probability that you could hurt it. They kind of got rid of that. They pushed away, and I get it because AP isn't really a thing anymore. I mean, sorry, the vehicle wounds, you know, I get it. So what they did instead was they gave you a very standard weapon profile, which is 24 inches, rapid fire 1, but he has a rend on it, and something like a bolt gun doesn't. This is really, really interesting because what it does is, even if you have the best save, you're still going to have to, at some point, roll enough die that you're going to fail something. So you still get kind of that same feel of like always having options simply because your weapon has rend on it. Of course, remember rapid fire, you get within 12 inches, and that's a ton of shots coming in there, especially if you bulk it up to a unit of 20. Two more things to note. One of them, this is a pretty slow unit. They move 5 inches. Compare that to base units of other armies. They're not going anywhere quick. Now, of course, remember that the Overlord, if you go with him, always has the ability to give them +1 to their advances and charges, so you could theoretically move faster. It's just something of note to keep here that the whole army is not built around speed. Your fastest things are not as fast as other people's fast things. So just keep that in mind. And the last thing I just wanted to note here, but we're going to talk about it near the end, is reanimation protocols, which really ties into the theme of Necrons as a whole. Third unit you get in the box is these Scarab Swarms. Now, Scarab Swarms and Necron Warriors come in the same box. They actually are like, you get 3 bases of Scarabs for every 12 Necrons that you buy. So every time you buy Necrons, you're getting a twofer. It's really a great deal. Scarabs in this edition, they come in increments of 3, which is perfect. It's exactly what you get. They are kind of your faster moving harassing units. So basically they have 10-inch move versus everyone else's 10. So you're going to want these guys in your army, I think, for objective grabbing towards the end of games. You're going to want them for getting up there and tying up units. Remember, we're going to go over kind of tactics here a little bit, but this is very much a gunline army. So you want them kind of like intercepting things that are going to get your Necrons tied in melee. And I think that's a really great way to view these guys. They have a little special rule that, to kind of condense what it says, if they are weaker than the person that they're hitting, they always wound on 5s, which is kind of fun because that means they can go toe-to-toe with something like a tank and shred it up if there's enough of them. Remember that they also have 3 wounds each, which means each one of those pockets of 3 is 9 wounds. If you had a unit, I mean, heck, even just of 6 of them, right? That's just 2 more in terms of like how many you buy. That's a lot of wounds. It's a lot. 18 wounds doesn't seem like much, but when it's a swarm coming at you and your opponent has to deal with them, what it is anything that shoots them is not shooting your Necron Warriors, and that's a win for you, especially because they're so cheap and so little. They're so expendable. So just kind of think of them that way, that they are actually tougher than they look, and they do hit above their weight class. They don't hit very hard, I would say. They're not like devastating in combat. But the fact is they can pose a threat that your opponent has to deal with, or they can do some really fun things. I think it's really interesting to note that these guys are tough, the little Scarab guys, but they're tough in a different way than the rest of the Necron army, where the Necron army has a lot of good saves and reanimation protocols, obviously, and ways to manipulate that role. The Scarab Swarms really shine because they are replenishable by spiders. You can like put more Scarabs out, but also that they have multiple wounds, large bases, they can cover areas, so they just have a different kind of toughness. So don't confuse yourself into thinking that this is like a nothing little tiny chaff guy. They can do more than you would think. So the last unit we're going to talk about is the Triox Stalker. This is the big centerpiece spider looking guy inside the box, and he really brings the set together, I would say. How does he do it? Well, he has this cool thing called Targeting Relay. What that means is any Necron unit gets to reroll hit rolls of 1 if they attack an enemy unit that the Stalker already attacked. Now, read the wording very carefully, because if you read it correctly, you'll notice that it doesn't say that the Stalker wounded, it just means that he attacked it. This is really important because it's not dependent on him to damage the thing in order for everyone else to get a bonus. As long as you're all aiming at the same target and the Stalker shoots first, everyone gets reroll 1 to hit on that target that they're looking at. Keep in mind, you have an Overlord who gives you +1 to hit, +1 to your hit rolls, and then a Stalker that gives you rerolls of 1, and things are looking pretty good, right? 2-up rerollable to hit is really, really freaking good. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, it's pretty amazing how these kinds of synergies exist even in a starter box, where if you start your turn, he shoots somebody, then your other units all engage it. You can see that one unit, right, the Stalker, engages one synergy, and then the Overlord kicks in and does another one, and so all of a sudden the forces are multiplied beyond what you would think. It really does make up for their lack of speed because they can just delete a target once a turn. Alright, so now I want to read something from you. This is from the index on the Stalker. Okay, this is ridiculous, and I love this vehicle for this reason, okay? Each time this model suffers damage from an unsaved wound, roll a d6. If the result is less than the damage inflicted by the attack, the damage is ignored. Meaning, if you are hit by a cannon shot that does 4 damage, you roll a die. If you roll a 1, which is less than the damage took, it's ignored. This is insane, okay? And here's why. What it does is it means big shots aren't going to be what kills this guy. It's going to be paper cuts, okay? And combine that with living metal, which heals him a wound, you have a pretty good chance of staying alive for quite a while. Big shots, Leman Russ tanks, Land Raiders, Dark Lances from Dark Eldar with the D6 roll, like all of these things, sure, you're not going to save all of them through this, and keep in mind that this is also, you know, he still gets a 3-up save, I mean, on top of that, so he has a lot of chances to dodge a lot of those higher impact wounds. So really what's going to hurt him, I think, more often is those ones where it's like, does 1 wound, does 2 wounds, maybe 3, you know, depending on how you roll for the quantum shielding. So just keep that in mind that this guy is actually relatively tough. He's really, really good. Okay, so those are all the units in the box. So what I always do in these kind of videos is I then take a step back and we just kind of evaluate. I kind of evaluate boxes based on 2 questions, and one is, does this start collecting box exemplify the army as a whole? Meaning, can you get a good idea of how Necrons play based on this box? And I would say yes. You have some fairly stocky infantry. They don't die easily. Reanimation protocols, which we'll get to in a second, keeps them going. There's a lot of internal synergy between targeting relay and the Overlord's ability to buff a unit. You get a good swath of models, meaning you get actual Necrons, you get Necron warriors, you get some of their vehicles, you get to see kind of the machinery that they use that aren't really actual Necrons, like the Scarabs and the Spider and all those things. Like, they're all robots that they created, but they're not really Necrons. You get a good flavor for them, I would say. You definitely are exposed to the fact that you are a slow-moving army with a lot of firepower synergy. I think what typifies or exemplifies Necrons is the fact that they do attrition really well, right? They don't die easily, and that also that they are a really powerful firing base, which I think they are. Now the next question is, does this start collecting box give you a good start to the army? Like, if, say, you taste the flavor of Necrons and you really enjoy it from this box, is this a good entry point for getting models for that army? That one kind of depends. I would say initially, absolutely. You're exposed to a lot of cool models and things like that. If you're talking about expanding going forward, like in terms of buying multiple boxes and stuff like that, it really depends on what kind of army you want. If you want to have a bunch of Triarch Stalkers and stuff like that, yeah, absolutely, go for it. I mean, that's kind of the most expensive model in the box, and so it kind of revolves around that one if you like it or not, frankly. But everything else there you're going to use. You're going to use the Overlord. Or you can use them as a Lord too. You're going to use warriors out the nose. Scarab Swarms always come with warriors, like when you literally buy the box in real life. So, I mean, you're always going to have them. So, I mean, like I said, it kind of depends on what you want to do with the Stalker, kind of relates to how valuable buying multiples of this box is. For starting, I would say it's phenomenal. Even if you bought this box and then bought, say, another box of warriors, right, so you can have an HQ, 2 troops, and, you know, kind of actually make an actual patrol detachment, it's still awesome, because you would do the same thing. You would just have more guys to do it. You would point the Stalker at somebody, everybody else decimates that target, pick another target, boom. So I think it functions really well. I think it shows off the army really well, and as far as starting, if it's your first purchase, it's definitely a great one. If you bought this box and you're kind of wondering how to play Necrons, it's very easy to look at their stat line and think like they're very much like Marines, and in a certain sense they are. They have a very similar stat line. They're a little bit slower, but they have a rend on their guns, so that's okay. What makes Necrons unique, first of all, in sense of this box in particular, is the synergies there. The targeting relay is awesome. The Overlord's ability is awesome. The diversity of units you get so that you have the Scarab Swarms to go harass people is great. So if you were going to play a Star Collecting Box game with a friend, or maybe even a low point level like 500 points or 20 power level, however you want to play, what I would say your strategy would simply be is when you start the game, ask your opponent what their fastest unit is and have your Scarabs go run directly towards that, and then the rest of the army is going to focus on fire on pretty much everything else. Once that unit is tied up and they can't physically get engaged in melee, the rest of it just comes down to shooting what you can. And I say deleting a unit meaning like wipe it off the board, but you don't actually have to delete it. You just have to shoot it down to where it's no longer combat effective. So say you were to play this versus a Star Collecting Box of Space Marines, right? Just the Ultramarine variety. What I would say is take that Scarab unit, go directly after, say, I'd probably pin down the Dreadnought and then try as much as you can to fire at the squad and get rid of them. For example, but what I'm saying is like Scarabs play defense, everybody else shoots. That's kind of the idea here. So a question that always comes up is where to go from here. Well, like I said, if you really love this Triox Talker, get multiple boxes. You can use it as an Overlord, you Lord, you can have extra parts from Necrons because you would have, what, 4 extra Necron warriors at that point. So yeah, you can do quite a bit of versatility there. You can do some kit bashing, a lot of fun stuff. So that's, again, if you like the Stalker. If you don't, I think the next stop, regardless, is going to be getting a box of Necron warriors, which also comes with 3 more Scarab bases. Just so you can meet that patrol detachment and you can really start playing legal games and things like that. I think that'll be really important. Beyond that, you really have to just kind of look at the model range and see what you like. If you like the big, heavy guys, things like the Monolith, right? The Monolith's a beast and it's going to get you pretty far in life. Be mindful that not everyone can play against it because it is really, really powerful, like in terms of just, you can't bring it to like a 500 point game and everyone be happy kind of thing. So there's that. And then also but there's also cool stuff like the spiders, you can spit out more swarms, like those are all bigger, larger models that can do cool things. If you like the infantry aspect, which I think really plays to the reanimation protocols of Necrons, definitely all the warriors, you can get Praetorians, you can get Lich Guard, all those kinds of things, different types of warriors that do different things in different roles and really exemplify them. Again, Lords with the Resurrection Orbs on a large body of units, like 20 Necron warriors, is going to be insanely good. Something also to point out, if you're going infantry heavy, remember that Cryptex have an ability that lets you add 1 to your reanimation protocol rolls, which means on a 4-up, people are coming back to life. And so you can combine that because of its wording with the Resurrection Orb. So all of a sudden you just are not losing guys. You're just not losing guys at all. It's pretty awesome. And I want to end the show kind of talking about reanimation protocols. This is a huge thing that GW just kind of released a FAQ kind of clarifying. So reanimation protocols are this ability that every turn basically you get to look at a Necron unit. You get to roll a die for everyone in that unit who has died and they have a chance of coming back. They are placed near the unit that they came from, but you can't kind of like daisy chain them out. It has to be near somebody who was already living there, right? Which makes sense, so you don't like string yourself into weird places. Totally get it, and I'm down with that. What they clarified, however, was that models that have fled from, say, morale and stuff like that don't come back. They don't even roll. So this has a little bit of bookkeeping that you have to keep track of. If you have a large unit of Necron warriors, say 20 guys, and 2 of them flee, you don't roll for those. What I would suggest is put those off to the side, and everyone else who dies kind of put them in a little separate pocket, just because it helps keep your mind straight as to who you're rolling for. So that's important. Now, also keep in mind that the leadership on Necrons is insanely good, okay? You're not going to be running away very often. It's a rule that came up for those specific reasons where large units, you might lose 1 or 2 guys a game. So the FAQ might seem kind of down and negative on Necrons, but the fact of the matter is, in practice, you're not going to be losing that much, so don't worry about it. And because of the wording on the Resurrection Orb, it applies to that too. So once a guy flees from battle, he's dead, he's gone. There's no helping him. But just from normal damage and things like that, they can always come back with a reanimation protocol, no matter how many times they're destroyed, which is pretty awesome. Just before we end this, I want to give one last shout out to go check out Heroic Intervention. They're an awesome podcast. There's a link down in the show notes. If you would like, head over to the 2+ Stuff site and click on the store icon. We are selling our own gaming mats. They have a awesome theme of kind of like an alien wasteland. You can use them in Age of Sigmar as well. All the proceeds from that go directly to supporting me as a content producer. I don't do any advertisements or stuff like that on my site. I keep it clean. I do good content. And this is just a way that you guys can get something awesome and also support me. And I appreciate it so much. Thank you guys for all your support. We look forward to seeing you next time. Next time we're going to talk about the Eldar and their Star Collecting box and see how it fares in the new edition. Thank you so much for watching. Happy wargaming.